Well, like I said, my son worked with these individuals who had TBIs or autism, and he loved his clients. But he also loved Lego. And just knowing how much enjoyment he got from helping them through Lego, we decided to start a foundation in his honor where we provide Legos to different organizations that work with people with TBIs and intellectual disabilities.
Welcome to another episode of Relentlessly Resilient, presented by Minky Couture, a weekly podcast where people share real-life experiences and the tools they've developed to move forward and live their best lives. I'm Jennie Taylor.
And I'm Michelle Scharf. And I have been a big fan of our sponsor for a very long time. And even though it's starting to warm up a little bit, Minky Couture has blankets for all seasons and occasions. And right now it's April when we're recording. And we have spring on the horizon, baby showers, wedding showers, and all kinds of great occasions to stock up on Minky Couture.
You can find them at 6 stores here in Utah or minkycouture.com. Don't wait. Buy today.
Thank you for joining us. We have a special guest in our podcast studio today. I'm really excited to share her story with you. Her name is Karen Poulson, and she is the mother of a young man, Tanner, and she's going to share with us her story. But I wanted to point out that Karen is a listener of our show and reached out to the show, and I'm so excited to have you on. Perfect guest for our show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us and thanks for listening. And we'll just throw in a little plug. If you're listening, you probably have a story we're sharing too. Just going to plant that little seed.
Yeah. So Karen, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm a mother of 4 kids. I've got 2 daughters and 2 sons, grandmother of 9.
Wow.
They're my life.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I
exciting.
love my grandkids.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the best
They keep
part
you
of
busy.
life. Yeah.
Besides that, I work 3 part-time jobs.
Oh, my goodness.
And run a nonprofit.
Well,
That's
what else do you do
amazing.
in your free
Yeah.
time?
She's
Grandkids.
just one of us. Let's
Yeah,
face
you
it,
fit
Jennie.
right in.
It fits right in with you and
I'm
I.
curious about the nonprofit and the jobs. What kind of work do you do?
Well, I'm actually a part-time florist. And then I'm also a hairdresser for a local
Okay.
mortuary. And I have an online business as well.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So you definitely stay busy between the kids, the grandkids, and everything else you're
Absolutely.
doing. And that's a beautiful service to be the hairdresser for the mortuary. When you sometimes don't think of that. And the people who help prepare the body for burial and things. And that's such a great service to those families in a very difficult time.
I love it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Karen, before we get started on your story, tell us what resilience means to you.
Wow. Really, to me, it's just, I get up every day and I think of, who I am, who I want to be. And just whatever trials face me throughout that day, I think, what would that person do?
The
And that's
person
what I
that
do.
you want to
the
be.
person
I
that you
wanna
want
be.
to be.
Yeah, I like that. I love having that perspective. That's a great tip for other people.
Not always easy.
Yeah, not always easy. So tell us about your son, Tanner.
Wow.
Yeah, it's okay.
He's my baby. He was 31 years old when he passed. He's always been the tender-hearted one in our family. A lover of animals, lover of people. He worked with handicapped people, adults who had intellectual challenges, TBIs, autism. He was a behavior analyst, and he would write up the plans for these people, so it was more of an office job. But he took it farther than that.
That's such important work. I
Yeah.
have
Really?
a grandson who has a traumatic brain injury, a TBI, and autism as well. And those behavioral analysts are just such key partners with
Right.
the parents and family and the education program.
Exactly. And he would go farther than his job, though. Those people that he worked with became his friends. And you would often find him taking them out to the movies, to dinner,
Oh,
metal detecting.
Oh, taking his own time to build those relationships.
He did.
so he was very focused on connection. I love that.
Yeah. Sorry, I get so emotional talking about him. But
It really hasn't been a lot of time since his
No.
passing.
it's been 14 months.
Yeah.
So it's still pretty
And it's
fresh.
so recent. Yeah.
It is. But again, he was just such a tender-hearted young man, and he's always had this passion for Lego.
Yeah.
As a young kid. That's all he ever wanted for Christmas, for birthdays. And that grew into a passion as he got older as well. And he became a Lego artist.
Oh, wow.
And he would make mosaics or pictures like of the Star Wars characters.
Wow.
Or World of Warcraft characters. And he would do those out of Lego dots.
Oh.
And it was pretty incredible.
That's impressive for your mind to be able to work and put pieces together that way.
Yes.
Amazing.
So he would sell those designs online, and he was just really getting started in that the year before he passed. And again, it was just a huge passion of his. And so he'd often go build Lego with his clients as well.
So awesome. It's another way to connect with people because you're sitting there working on something together.
Well, Lego has a lot of uses as far as teaching hand-eye coordination. And people with traumatic brain injuries, it helps to build connections in their brain. It also is a great way for people to learn inclusion. When you've got neurotypical people working with these, autistic and traumatic brain injury individuals, it helps them to feel included because it's something that they can do as well.
Yeah. So what happened to Tanner?
Well, he passed in February 2023, and at the beginning of November 22, he started having some heart palpitations. Wasn't anything we worried about too much, but it was bothering him, so I told him to go to the Instacare, and he did. And when they listened to his heart, they said something didn't sound quite right, that he should go see a cardiologist. But they forgot to make the appointment. So later that month, he went back, and they had forgotten to make the appointment. So they made it then, and he got in December with the cardiologist, and they ran a battery of tests and had him wear the heart monitor for a week and found that he was skipping every other heartbeat.
Wow.
And yeah.
Had he had any history of this as a child?
No.
I mean, because he's very young to be seeing a cardiologist, or he's older to have not yet known he needed a cardiologist, right?
We think he had COVID twice, and one time was pretty bad. So we think it weakened his heart.
Something from COVID.
Right.
I mean, that's the disease that just keeps on giving. You hear so many stories of kind of the ripple effects of that.
Right. And so throughout December and January, they ran a bunch of tests and decided he was either going to need a pacemaker, a new heart valve, or an ablation.
Oh, my goodness.
But unfortunately, with our medical system, there was a lot of miscommunication between departments, and everything just got pushed off. And they needed an MRI before knowing what to do. They originally scheduled it for January 24th, but the MRI department canceled it and rescheduled it
So
for
even
March
with all of
7th.
that, they still hadn't done an MRI?
No.
From November or so to January?
No.
Wow.
And so it got canceled. And the only reason it got rescheduled was because my son went in on the 23rd of January asking for the results of his other test and asking when the MRI was scheduled for. And at that point, they rescheduled it for March 7th, but he didn't make it that long.
Oh, my goodness.
So he passed in his sleep.
Just, did they rule out
tragedy.
heart failure, or what? Did they give you any type of, I mean, you're looking for answers, right?
Right.
Did they give you any answers after he passed?
Not really, because, again, there was a lot of miscommunication. So before there was an autopsy done, he was embalmed because the doctor signed off on it. So they embalmed him and without a known cause of death. So
I just can't believe that would even happen in today's medical world. I mean, you hear something where if there's any type of question as to the cause of death, I mean, it becomes absolutely, we've got to investigate. We've got to do the autopsy. You can't make any decisions or any declarations at all.
Right.
I mean, I know I have a couple of friends that we've either talked to on this podcast or I've heard on others where one in particular comes to mind. Her husband had been swimming and he had a cardiac episode that was not, he didn't drown, but he happened to be in the pool. And they did all kinds of investigative work after, even though they could have said, oh, he just drowned. But they had to really dig deeply to see what was the actual cause and manner of death. So for them to embalm him without running that that just drops my jaw.
I know.
Right.
That's incredible.
So when the medical examiner,
But it's also incredible that he's skipping every other
heartbeat.
And they're not making...
Like an MRI right now.
Right now.
Would you not do an MRI right now?
People have cancer...
Right.
Or even just a thought of cancer, they will make room for you within that day or that week.
It's the whole triage concept, right?
And I do have a couple friends who were experiencing the heart palpitations as well. And within 3 weeks of being diagnosed, they had pacemakers or an ablation done.
Well, I'm just impressed they diagnosed without the MRI. I mean, that feels like that'd be an important piece.
We found him on a Sunday night. He lived alone.
That was my next question. Was he in your home? Did he have a family of his own that he lived with, roommates or anything?
No, he owned a home down in St. George, and he lived by himself.
Wow.
And my husband was supposed to be going to market on Monday, so on Sunday night he was traveling down to St. George to stay the night with my son. And before he got there, he called my son and said, I'm on my way, and my son didn't answer.
Oh, my goodness.
And so when he got there, he called him again, and he didn't answer. So he went and rang the doorbell, no answer. And we're not sure how this happened, but we just happened to have his garage door opener in our car. We don't know how.
But so your husband could get into the home.
So he opened the garage, and there was my son's vehicle. So he went in through the garage door, and my son was kind of funny. He'd sleep with his bedroom door locked because he lived alone. Mm-hmm. And he always put the little key, that you put up on the door jamb on the inside. So my husband knocked because he didn't want to wake him up. We knew how tired he had been. He was sleeping a lot. And again, there was no answer. So he called my son's phone, and he could hear it in there ringing. So he went out to the garage and got the tools to take off the doorknob. And my son was in bed. We figured he had passed Friday night, Saturday morning.
Oh, my goodness.
So
imagine if your husband hadn't been going to St. George.
Yeah, we wouldn't have found him till Monday when he didn't show up for work. Yeah. Well, we have a family Zoom every Sunday night at 7:00. And so we probably would have wondered had he not jumped on.
Not been there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm so
sorry.
And your husband to find that and discover that has to have been awful for him. And then to have to call you and
that was hard. I was home alone when he called. So I have a daughter that lives about a half hour away, so I called her and she came over. My other son from up north came down. And then I have a daughter who lives in St. George, and she immediately went over there. Mm. And she was such a trooper. She cleaned out his whole house, and you have to understand my son has thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of Legos. His whole house was decorated in Lego, and she boxed up everything.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And he's the baby brother.
He's the youngest. And at some point in his life, he lived with all of his siblings. So he was a roommate of my oldest daughter for, I think, 5 or 6 years. And when his house was being built, he lived with my daughter in St. George. And then when he was going to school at one point, he was living with his brother and his wife when they had their first baby. So he's lived with all of them.
Oh, my goodness.
What a blessing now.
Yeah.
That he got to have that time with them and that they had that time with him as well, because his life was cut way too short.
It was.
Oh, that's so sad. I'm so sorry. It's just, whenever we lose somebody, it's never easy, but this particular situation seems so senseless and so unnecessary.
Right. It didn't need to happen.
No.
It was an easy fix.
Yeah, an easy fix, and he was young, and other than the issue he was having, healthy.
Like I said, they embalmed him on Monday, and on Wednesday, the medical examiner called the mortuary and said, what was the cause of death? And they're like, we don't know. So he called the doctor, and the doctor's like, I don't know. But yet the doctor had signed off on it. And so they immediately called back to the mortuary and said, we need him up here. So they went ahead and did an autopsy, but he had already been embalmed. But from everything they could see, toxicology, everything, he was perfectly healthy, nothing wrong. It was just an electrical problem with his heart.
So
devastating.
Sad. So sad. So tell us, I know that part of your busyness and your schedule is about really honoring your son. And I love the foundation that you've created. Tell us about your foundation.
Well, like I said, my son worked with these individuals who had TBIs or autism, and he loved those. He loved his clients. But he also loved Lego. And both of those were such a huge part of his life. And my son had often told me he had a dream. And his dream was to see a need and fill it. And he took advantage of different situations to be able to do that. I know one time a friend told us they were out to eat at a local restaurant, and Tanner could tell the waitress was struggling. So he talked to her for a little bit to find out what was going on, and then he left her $100 tip.
Oh, my goodness.
And he called me afterwards. And he just said, Mom, it felt so good. So it was a dream he had that when he saw a need, he wanted to be able to fill it. And of course, that wasn't something we felt we could really set something up to do in his honor, but he loved Lego so much, and he loved his clients, and just knowing how much enjoyment he got from helping them through Lego, we decided to start a foundation in his honor where we provide Legos to different organizations that work with people with TBIs and intellectual disabilities, like day programs and classrooms, things like that. We supply Legos for them because Lego has so many benefits, therapeutic benefits for brain injuries and things like that. So, it was just a way to honor him and keep his dream alive of helping others.
I love that. What's the name of the foundation?
It's the I Love Us Project.
Oh,
which I love the name of this, the I Love Us Project.
He named it.
He named it.
Okay, tell us more about that.
Tell us about that.
On Valentine's Day, a few years before, he had made a post on Facebook, and it was a picture of all of us at a river on Easter. And he wrote on there in big letters under the picture, I love us. And then he said, I may be the loner in the middle, but I sure have some amazing examples of love in my life. And that just kind of summed up our son.
Yeah. And even the story that you talked, why I was going to say I love the name of this, and it's so perfect, is because it's all about connection. And that's what we all want to feel, right? We all need to feel loved and a part of community. Yeah. And so naming it I Love Us, I mean, to me, it's just a perfect.
Yeah. It was just a total embodiment of what he stood for.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah. I love it. I donated today, and I want our listeners to know it's so easy to donate. It's a very simple process. You can go to the iloveusproject.com, and it's just super simple. You can just scroll right down, hit donate. You can choose your amount, and it's just easy peasy to do. I was able to Apple Pay, and it was quick. I loved it.
I love that. I want to hear a little bit about what does it look like when you go to donate these? Do you ship them to the facility or the person?
We do.
Do you hand deliver? Do you have interaction to know what maybe their response is when they're given?
In Utah, we've hand delivered a lot of them, but we've also mailed a lot of them as well. We do ask that they send us pictures, and we understand that a lot of their clients don't, or their families would not want their faces on social media. So we just ask, that they send us a picture of them receiving it, not the clients, but the company itself, unless they have clients that are willing to share their photos with us.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite experience of when you've been able to hand deliver them and what it's been like to be able to physically pass that legacy of your son on?
Yes. 2 different occasions. One is with Chrysalis down in St. George, and that's who Tanner worked for. We've actually donated to them a few times, to their day program, and to the individuals that Tanner worked with. But taking that down there and just handing that over and seeing the appreciation. He had some amazing coworkers that were there, and it just felt good. It brings us a lot of peace. Another occasion, we donated to the Chrysalis down in Cedar City, and after I delivered those, I received a picture by email of a client that they gave one of the sets to, and it was a young man that I had in a primary class when he was little.
Oh my goodness. So all these years later now, a new connection.
Right.
Such a small world.
Yeah, it was just awesome to see the big smile on his face because he was so excited about the set of Legos that he received. And so that was really neat.
I love that. I love that it's something tangible and something creative. We've talked before about how creating something, whether it's art or a Lego set or a book or music or something, it can be so healing, regardless of what we've been through. We all can create in different ways, but to think of this tangible reminder and gift to give in your son's honor, I think that's beautiful.
Thank you. It's funny too because Tanner was, again, the Lego artist of the family, but he got his whole family involved in Lego. So his nieces and nephews especially, because when he would get a new Lego set, my daughter has 3 kids down in St. George, and he would call her up and say, "What are your kids doing after school today?" "I got a new Lego set."
Oh.
So he would come over and have them build with him. And so it just kind of rubbed off on the rest of the family. So my husband now builds Legos a set probably every Sunday night. Decorations in my house are now Lego.
Yeah.
For Easter, we've got the little flower basket.
Well, they make them for every occasion.
They do.
I mean, you can have the bunny and the flowers. You can have just the flowers. There's some beautiful Mother's Day flower Legos. Did he have a certain type of Lego that he loved the most? I know you said he created a lot of his own, but was he...
Anything Star Wars?
Star Wars, I was wondering. Yep.
Yes, he had every AT-AT walker from the first one that was really tiny to the last one
to
that
the massive,
stood like 2.5 feet
Well, like you
tall.
said, if he's got hundreds and hundreds of Lego sets, that's thousands and thousands of Lego dollars invested.
If you would have seen...
Legos are not
They are
No, they're not
expensive. No.
He was so organized as well. It was so funny because he has these little plastic drawers that have, the little 2-inch drawers. Mm-hmm. And in our basement where we have all this stuff stored now, we have one whole wall of these little 2-inch drawers that are filled with different colored Lego dots.
They're sorted and organized. That makes my heart so happy. I once tried to sort and organize my little boy's Legos by color, and my sister-in-law just laughed at me. It lasted like 34 seconds, but for those 34 seconds, I was so happy because there's nothing better than organized Legos that are color sorted.
Yes, and he'd keep all of his boxes in pristine condition because he knew
incredible.
the value.
Yeah.
The value of the Lego is partially the box. So he'd have all these boxes stacked up in a walk-in closet in his house.
Oh my goodness! So you said he loved Legos growing up?
He did.
Did his brother and sisters as well, or was it kind of his thing?
They did, but not to
as
the
much.
to the extent that Tanner did.
He was a creator.
Yes,
I love that.
he was an artist as well.
Legos, and they really enjoyed it. I am not a Lego builder. I can appreciate Legos, but I don't like to step on them.
No, and we've all stepped on more than our fair share.
We have kids, you sure have.
I love Legos, and I really love hearing how it's been such a bonding thing, whether it's bonding with the clients, bonding with his previous coworkers, bonding with the nieces and nephews that are your grandchildren, because I feel like Lego is something I have in common. Like my kids can all bond with each other because every child has different interests and different likes, and sometimes older teenagers don't want to play with little younger siblings, but man, if it comes down to Legos, we can all go to the Lego store and be happy.
Yeah.
And even my oldest daughter, who never really cared for Legos when she was younger, she loves some of the artistic ones now. They have them where there's a Van Gogh painting out of Legos, or there is a floral bouquet or cute little cactus and succulents.
Yeah,
and
there's really something for everybody.
We can break the bank at the Lego store.
Yes,
my
easily.
sons tend
You have to
like
be
the
brave to go
mechanical
in.
ones, like
Yes,
the
the
robotic
technique.
ones, and they're just too complicated for me to understand how to put together. But like any of those other ones, those are more interesting to me. I mean, there's something for everyone in a Lego.
My husband actually gave me a dozen red roses for Valentine's Day made out of Lego.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well done.
That's beautiful.
Well done, honey.
I love that.
And brilliant marketing. I mean, Disney and Lego could just both teach all kinds of classes on the marketing to where they just keep reinventing themselves. But something that could be dismissed as a child toy has become something powerful.
Definitely.
And healing. How is the foundation going? Are you finding good success in what you're doing? And
yes, we really want to get the word out there so we can supply more organizations with these. So that's what we're working on right now, is getting the word out there.
So to all of our listeners, if
Log on
you
right now,
feel
everyone.
a connection to this story, you can make any size donation that you're able to make. $5, $10, everything.
Imagine
adds
if everybody listening right now were to pause for a quick minute and go pitch in for some Legos.
So if you are listening today, you could really make a difference,
especially
and an impact, a huge
if you've ever had a bonding moment over some Legos, whether it's with a child or a grandchild or a friend or a buddy when you were the kid. This would be the perfect opportunity in the spirit of giving to say, I'm going to give a few dollars that will buy a few bricks.
And I just love it because what you're doing is providing to a cause that is about connection, and it is about healing. And it's also about extending a legacy. So if this is something that our viewers connect with, please go to iloveusproject.com and make any size donation, 5, 10, 25, 50, 100.
And you said they'll even take Apple Pay, which is always half the battle, is trying to find where's my wallet so I can type in my card number.
So easy to do.
And they can also, if they choose not to make a financial donation, we have jewelry for sale, Lego jewelry.
I just bought them.
Oh my goodness, Lego. Okay, our producer is getting the merch during the show.
I'm wearing mine right now.
Buying jewelry.
Okay, everyone go look at the show notes or find us on social media to this episode because you're going to want to see the photo. That's beautiful. It's blingy Lego necklace, people. It's not just a plain plastic brick. It's beautiful.
We'll have to take a picture, make sure that goes up on our media. That's awesome.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways they can donate.
Oh, shoot. Now I'm going to have to get back on and find more.
Okay, tell me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways they can donate.
Oh, shoot. Now I'm going to have to get back on and find more.
Okay, tell me a little bit about how you're doing. You said you're just a little over a year, and that first year is so hard and so heavy and so difficult. But I found year 2 to be maybe harder and more difficult and heavier because you anticipate year 1 being so hard and difficult and heavy. And then I don't know if in my mind I thought maybe year 2 would just all of a sudden be magically back to normal. But you're right in the beginning of that second year. You've got other children that are living their lives and your husband and grandchildren. Walk us through what maybe the grief journey and resilience looks like in the day-to-day where you are right now, if you don't mind.
Oh, I don't mind at all. You know, we live in such a supportive community, a very small town of Richfield, and the people there are just so amazing. It's like this last week I had the young women from our church and their leaders brought over a bouquet of yellow tulips and some beehive fudge just to say they were thinking of me.
So you've got a good support network at home?
Definitely.
Tell us more about that because I think so much of resilience really is who's around us. We've talked about this before. We might think resilience means me, I individually have to be strong and just carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. That's not resilience at all.
No, it's not.
And I want to also interject here just a little bit to add to what you said, Jennie. I think looking back on my own grief journey, that first year is all about getting through the first, and everyone tells that, right? They say
the first
it's all about getting through the first or whatever. But what you don't anticipate is all the life events that start happening that they're not there for. Yeah. The other things, the new grandchildren,
Right,
the new
right.
nieces, his new nieces and nephews that he's not going to be there for. You know, anything that involves the family dynamic that you're like, oh, it would have been so nice for Tanner to be a part of this.
Right.
I think that those are the things that catch us off guard in that second year, because
Absolutely.
everyone kind of prepares us for, you're going to
it's
miss
as if-
all these first, and those
Correct.
are hard. But nobody prepares us for, and then life is going to happen, and all these events are going to happen
over and over again.
constantly throughout your life that they're not going to be present for. And it's just, we don't really talk about that layer of
Right.
grief in our
We don't.
culture.
We societally prepare ourselves for 1 year, and then it's almost
Yeah.
as if people expect you to move on. in
Move
the terrible
on.
Air
Yeah.
quotes.
Yeah.
Gotten over it. You're done. Check the box. And I appreciate you
Right.
mentioning
Or
that.
like, we'll put up with your grieving for a year, but after that, you just need to move on.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work for
It does.
like that, right?
I don't think
mean,
you ever move on. We may move forward,
we do.
That's
but you
beautiful.
never move on.
No, there's no moving on. And, you know, I've talked about this on the show before. That was my biggest tip from my grief counselor. And she was like, Michelle, you keep wanting to wrap this up in a box and put it on a shelf as if it's something that happened and then you can move past it. You're going to carry this person with you the
Right.
rest of your life. He was a part of your life. He was a part of your entire family. So understanding that and learning that you have to make peace with this grief. And there is some truth to it, that grief is just the love that you don't have that person there to give anymore. So I love that you've created this foundation as an effort to be able to give that love to other people.
And it's so healing. It really is.
It's beautiful.
Just having something that keeps his memory alive.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll always be alive with us, but we want to keep his memory alive with others as well.
Right.
Yeah. If you go to the website, Tanner's pictures on there when you first open it up, he was a beautiful young man and just at the, young, just too young to go.
Far too young. What does it look like in your family interactions as you keep him alive? I love how you're keeping the legacy larger than at home, but you mentioned the Sunday Zooms or family gatherings. Michelle's talked about that as well. What does that sacred space look like in your home or the extended family as you keep him alive for the siblings, for the nieces and nephews, your grandchildren?
Well, like I said, Tanner had so many Legos that were built. I mean, he had like all of the Mario, like Bowser and all of those, and things that my grandkids built with him. So when Tanner passed, we allowed each of the grandchildren to pick their favorite piece. And then as far as the mosaics go, we divvied those out to each of our kids and my nephew, who was Tanner's best friend. And so having those in their homes, it's just...
Keeps them present.
It keeps them present.
Yeah.
Every time they look at those, they'll remember Tanner.
It's a tangible reminder.
It's
Yeah.
really
I love
beautiful.
that.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to think of Legos differently now. When I go home and they are in our home, and like I said, my kids all love them. I appreciate this. You've kind of given me a little more to think about when we build those Legos.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you.
I want to remind our listeners that if you're out there, please make a contribution, no matter the size. It all adds up, and it can really add up to help other people. It's the iloveusproject.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Karen, this is beautiful, the items you have on the Foundation's website, but you mentioned that Tanner had been a creator who sold some of his creations. Where can we see some of those?
He does have a Shopify store. It's called Poulson Designs.
Poulson Designs.
PoulsonDesigns.myshopify.com.
And you've kept that open. It's still
Yes,
his.
it's still his.
And be sure, if you're listening, to check out our social media pages for this episode to see the photos of him, photos of his creations, photos of the beautiful family. Just be sure to go look after you listen. And to those of you listening, we hope that you have enjoyed this episode and maybe been given reason to pause and think. And I think every time we hear stories like these, it just makes us appreciate who we have, what we have, maybe hold our loved ones a little closer, a little longer, because unfortunately we never know how long we have, and it's never long enough. It's never long enough, right? I mean, you could ask someone who's buried their sweetheart of 80 years or their grandfather was 95. It's always too soon, but this was particularly too soon. So Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for having been a listener. And again, just a quick reminder to those of you who are listening, there's so much that you've lived through. You've developed tools of resilience and had experiences that can help the rest of us as we strive to become more resilient, more interdependent, and just able to find that peace and happiness moving forward, not moving on after difficult things. So if you're listening and willing to share your story, please reach out to us. You can email us at rrpodcast@ksl.com or find us on social media at Relentlessly Resilient or Relentlessly Resilient Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And Michelle has this really cool little button you can click on, and it will just let you schedule a time to talk with her on the phone and go over what your story is and maybe it might be a good fit to share with our listeners on the show.
And remember, whatever you do,